Now I know what you folks are asking. Mr. TARDIS, what makes Doctor Who, the first Doctor Unbound, Knights of the Round TARDIS, an unbound Doctor Who story? Well, having finally listened to it, I still couldn't tell you. Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mr. TARDIS, and today we're going back into the Doctor Who Unbound range, believe it or not, for a first Doctor adventure with the cast from An Adventure in Space and Time. Yep, one of the best things to come out of the 50th anniversary. David Bradley as the first Doctor, Claudia Grant as Susan Foreman, Jamie Glover as Ian Chesterton, and Gemma Powell as Barbara Wright. And it's an interesting time to release a range like this because, well, basically, while we have had many first Doctor box sets over the past few years with David Bradley as the first Doctor and this TARDIS team, in recent years we've had Stephen Noonan and Lauren Cornelius as the first Doctor and Dodo for their own run of first Doctor adventures, so I don't really understand why we're having alternated versions, other than let's get David Bradley involved again because we like David Bradley. So to justify having two concurrent first Doctor ranges at the same time with different TARDIS teams, we're going unbound with this one, where it is the first Doctor, Ian, Susan and Barbara. However, it's not really strictly speaking canon, or it's an alternative timeline where a different adventure takes place, because Knights of the Round TARDIS, written by L.R. Hay, is a ultimate divergent story because the meddling monk got involved. Minor spoilers, but it's in the plot description. This time meddling wolf in monk's clothing, and honestly, if I can't talk about the meddling monk at all in this story, I can't talk about anything in this story because it's like the inciting incident, and that would be a very terrible review. So whether or not it was worth having an unbound First Doctor series from Big Finish, we're not really going to know for some time. This Return to Marinus box set comes out early 2026, but then the third box set doesn't come out until around mid-2027, so this is going to be a bit of a long game, folks. But in terms of the opener, Knights of the Round TARDIS, it opens with the First Doctor thinking he's taking Ian and Barbara home, but he actually lands in the 13th century, 1265 to be exact, in Oxford in England. And while they're there, they stumble across one of the world's first scientists, traditionally speaking, Roger Bacon, here played by Keith Wickham, but Roger Bacon, or Friar Bacon as he's colloquially known, is hiding a secret beneath his monk cloak. And with the First Doctor meeting a time-travelling mysterious monk a whole season early and with a whole different group of companions by him, this changes the timeline, and that's how we get to this unbound range.
Watch closely the windows of my rooms in Brasnose Hall for my servant. Take careful note of his appearance. Miles! Miles, you idle dolt, are you there?
Yes, Friar Bacon. I'm just starting your roast mutton. Did you need something?
Reach into that new cupboard to your right. There's something I want to show the people. And now, we wait. Until...
What? A TARDIS? But that's impossible. How could he have a TARDIS?
And one that's much better at camouflaging itself. Look how well it's blending in.
Observe that chestnut seller's booth in the far corner of the square. You never noticed it before, did you?
Sorry, Doctor, but I take a wild guess you're not so superior to this friar after all.
I agree. This Roger Bacon, whatever his real name is, seems to be precisely the same as me.
I feel like I'm burying the lead somewhat here. I'm talking more about what this range actually is as to whether or not Knights of the Round TARDIS is a good story or not, and honestly, I found it just completely middling. It's fine, it's a decent 2-hour story which is historically set, it's almost a pure historical with the exception of the monk's inclusion, and that's honestly kind of it. There's a big focus on Simon de Montfort, played by Joseph Milson, who is a precursor of English democracy, and that's where the story finds most of its momentum, it's where it finds most of its drama in regards to trying to make sure that the meddling monk doesn't change this fundamental aspect of English history. But honestly, that's kind of it. It's not remotely as dramatically impactful as a story like The Massacre, nor is it as funny and as entertaining as stories like The Romans or The Time Meddler. There's not even a lot of character work going on here. The First Doctor and Ian have very little to do in this story, story, and while Gemma Powell as Barbara is really bringing it to the table, I think she's the highlight of this quartet and this story. Claudia Grant as Susan, it's not Claudia's fault, but Susan is written so inconsistently in this story, and she's basically unrecognisable in regards to her TV portrayal as she is acting as a character. I mean, it's not the performance, it's strictly the character. I know that this story is definitely following on from the First Doctor Big Finish adventures, because at one point they do mention meeting the Master, which happened in the first one, but unfortunately I've not listened to these ones, so maybe I have missed something in regards to Susan's character, which is leading up to Knights of the Round TARDIS, but Susan acts astonishingly out of character just to instigate a part 1 cliffhanger. A big part of the drama of the story is that Simon de Montfort, he was one of the ones who brought democracy to England, or at least his philosophy and his beliefs is what was basically the first link in the chain to having democracy in England and a parliament as opposed to a monarchy. However, despite that supposed good for English history, he's also meant to have done some really bad things, and also there's two sides to this coin, but the story never actually establishes or says what the bad things that he did in history were. There's actually a point where Barbara sounds like she's about to explain the dual morality of Simon de Montfort, but then it just never does, and then the audience are given zero context. Like, it genuinely feels like whole scenes from this story are just outright missing. Was my digital copy faulty? I don't know, but either way, we're meant to be told these bad things that he supposedly did, which is one of the main reasons why Susan acts the way she does over the course of the story, because she's completely smitten with Simon, but he's also apparently a wrong-un, and that really conflicts me, and we're not told anything. I've not got a clue where this conflict is coming from in this story. Yeah, I could Google it, but the story should be telling me, it should be giving me this information. Heck, that's one of the main bits of utility for having a history teacher on board in the TARDIS, and also the Doctor, who has all of this omnipresent knowledge of Earth history, to explain it. Now, Keith Wickham is fun as the monk, and he's clearly having a great time in the recording booth, doing some Shakespearean villainous asides to the supposed camera, or I guess sides to the microphone in this audio medium, and he definitely gets some sort of glee of knowing that he's met the First Doctor out of order, and all of the bedlam that can cause to the time stream. He's clearly having a fun, meta-text analysis of that. But outside of that, there's not really a lot going on here. There's a big epic battle in part 2 as well, and there's a fun sequence where Ian takes part in a jousting competition and kind of gets carried away and gets pretty excited. That was pretty fun. But unfortunately, there's just not a lot else going on in Knights of the Round TARDIS. The production is pretty strong as usual, and, the actors are doing a really good job. Like I said, I think Gemma Powell is the one who's, the standout of the four here. With David Bradley, I think he's giving a good performance, but you have to understand that this is David Bradley as the First Doctor. He's not doing an outright impression of William Hartnell. This is basically his own sort of pseudo-offshoot of the character, and once you get past that hurdle, yeah, he's a fun incarnation, he just doesn't have a lot to do in this particular story. And in regards to what makes this an Unbound adventure, it's not really until the last few minutes where we really establish what that is, what that means, and what we're going to be doing going forward. The next Unbound story is a return to Marinus, where they're going to be meeting the Vords and the Daleks as well. So I feel like we're not really going to know what exactly this Unbound Ranger's proper, quote, deal is until much later on. But now that we have established that we're on a different time stream or a different parallel story, then maybe it can have a bit more fun, maybe it can experiment a bit more. But honestly, the kind of just the dramatic fundamentals of Knights of the Round TARDIS, I just found them really lacking. I just wasn't really particularly engaged. There just really wasn't that much, unfortunately, to the story. It was just a 2-hour story set in the 13th century with a monk, and that was honestly kind of it. A lot of the story is just a bunch of back and forth thing and sneaking around, and yeah, okay, great. I feel like they should have pushed the boat out a lot more for this first adventure and really leaned into this is a different universe, this is a different timeline now, everything's fundamentally changed, let's have a lot more fun with that, as opposed to this is a historical story that could have taken place almost anywhere in season 1, but the monk's here. That kind of feels like what Knights of the Round TARDIS was made to be initially, and then someone realised, wait, if it's Barbara, Ian and Susan meeting the monk, that means that changes everything. Let's maybe reverse engineer this whole series from that. I don't know, I kind of feel like maybe wait until future Unbound box sets have released to see if they do something a lot more interesting with this premise. I almost feel like you could skip this first chapter and maybe dive straight into Return to Marinus. Obviously this box set doesn't come out until 2026, so we can't know for sure, but at time of recording this, I think that Knights of the Round TARDIS honestly is kind of a safe skip. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of the First Doctor Unbound Knights of the Round TARDIS. There's not even a round table in this story. I just realised that there's no King Arthur or anything. This is such a strange release. But what did you folks think of it? Let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already for more Doctor Who Big Finish reviews. And folks, I'll see you all next time.